Hi, my name is Janet, and welcome back to my channel, David Love Janet. So today, I'm going to be talking about my second birth story. And, I was thinking, God is growing my family. By God's grace, more to come. By God's grace, I have a conviction of having the children God wants for me. We did have a set number. We kind of discussed in courtship, but as my love for the Lord grows, I do believe that children are really a blessing, and God does provide for children, and actually children bring blessing into your life, spiritually, monetarily, everything. Our testimony is, as we've added children, our income has grown like triple fold. So God is really faithful in providing for us, in allowing us to budget wisely. We can be good stewards as well with that money that He has given us. So, birth story, God is growing our family, and another subsequent birth story is to come by God's grace, which went really well. It's actually forthcoming of a home birth, so look forward to that. I had my third baby at home. We documented the whole thing, and I'll be sharing that story plus clips of that soon, which is very exciting. It's such a blessing to hire and dream up things, and then it actually happens. So I just give God all the glory. But this is the second birth story. So I had my first in the US and awaiting my spouse visa to come to the UK, and then I had my second, by God's grace, in the UK. So conception wise, I like to talk about conception because I know some of my sisters, people watching my life, are also waiting on the Lord for a child, or waiting, to conceive. And so conception with our second was planned. I did desire another child fairly quickly. By God's grace, breastfeeding worked for me as a natural contraceptive. So I didn't get my first period till like 9 months after I started breastfeeding. And so I decided to try another child around 10-11 months, and we were able to conceive pretty quickly by God's grace. So that is the story of that conception. And obviously I knew my cycles that time. If you read my first birth stories, I knew my cycle, but I did not understand. Obviously my cycle just passed. I couldn't conceive. I had to wait till my ovulation period and etc. to be able to try and conceive. So that's the conception of my second. And with my birth story, it was pretty straightforward as well, by God's grace. Throughout my pregnancy, everything was pretty normal. I don't get morning sickness. I only remember one episode of me throwing up once, and that was because I had an appointment that day. I had eaten cereal with milk, rushed out the house with my first to get to that midwife appointments. They only really have midwives here in the NHS in the UK. You're given a midwife. If you're high risk, then you would go to specialists and doctors, but everyone is given a midwife. It's just standard practice. Again, in my first blog, which I'll link below, my first birth blog, I did also get a midwife in the States. So I was going to my midwife appointment here. I went, came back, and just felt the urge to throw up because of all the rushing back and forth. That was like the only time. Something that I experienced during pregnancy as well was I did not experience that in this pregnancy. I was talking about hemorrhoids. I experienced it postpartum with my second, which I'll discuss later on after the birth story itself. What else did I experience in the pregnancy that was a little different from my first? I got a yeast infection that I didn't treat too soon. I was thinking it wasn't a yeast infection, but it was. And so once I treated it, it was gone. So if you're feeling uncomfortable down there, ladies, and it's itching, think of it as a yeast infection or bacterial vaginosis, something overgrown that needs treatment. It's not for us to just keep it contained or think we can just naturally wash it away. If there's a natural remedy that works, great, but sometimes it has to do with something medical, And so look into getting a medical remedy, a pessary, a gel, a cream, so you can just be gone away, especially during pregnancy. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You're already getting bigger and hormones and stuff are, changing. You want to make sure you're comfortable. In the pregnancy, I did subscribe fully through 3 trimesters of a subscription pregnancy gift bag for me, and the postpartum one was for baby, but I gifted that one to my friend. First pregnancy blog story. I only got 1 trimester of that pregnancy bag, because, like I said in the beginning, after the firstborn, our income grew, so I was able to afford and treat myself to all 3 subscription bags. But it was US based, so bringing it to the UK brought customs charges, which I wasn't ready for, but it was still a blessing. I used the stork bag, and it just happened with, mama, especially if you have a firstborn already, if you already have a child already, you tend to forget more about yourself, but you really need to pamper yourself, and you really need to take care of yourself during your pregnancies. And so that's my tip for like self-care, is these pregnancy bags. So when I get them, they have like creams, they have like a little, like they have like special snacks, which I usually share with my family anyway, like body creams or like face masks, foot masks, to just remind myself to slow down, to take care of myself, to enjoy, have a little time to myself, and then indulge and use these things to, spruce up my body and spruce up my feelings and stuff like that. Really nice thing that happened was my sisters and my mom came over closer to my due date, and so I'm going to publish this simultaneously with my 2019 reflection, which I should have been published because I'm about to write another 2020 family reflections. So they came and we were able to go out to London and sightsee, which I really think got things moving in my body wise. And we were able to go to a mini baby moon by God's grace. My sister and my mom watched my first, and my husband and I, we went just on an overnight staycation to a hotel nearby. It was Best Western. Best Westerns usually have really good service here. And we went overnight, had breakfast, spent time together, connected intimately, mentally, and it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to like another mini vacation with my husband. And yeah, that was really nice. And so we had like a little makeshift baby shower for the second one, or baby sprinkle for the second one, which I'll insert a picture as well. And then it comes to the actual labor and delivery. So with my first, I delivered on the due date, and I feel like I kind of planned that more, taking an oil and then going for a long walk the day before. So with this pregnancy, I believe all the activity with my mom and my sisters, and it actually is research that subsequent children can come faster and earlier. So I did start contracting about 2 days before my due date, and I actually had a plan, use my own labor, taking oil again and walking on the weekend so my husband could be here because he had been traveling for work during that season. So on, I think about two days before my due date, my contraction started about 3 a.m. just like my first. I knew the feeling. I knew this was not something fake. This was something real because of my previous birth. And that's the thing with subsequent birth. Just be reassured that since your body has done it all before, you can kind of liaise with that other birth. I know, the saying is all births are different, and they truly are in my case, but just slightly. So because of my first, I knew that, this might go fast as well. Let my mom know that I am contracting at 3 a.m. And so, it was still early labor. So it was contracting, let my mom know around like in the morning, 6, 7, when she woke up. And she said, okay, let's just, and I didn't even pack my hospital bag because I was not ready to give birth that day. So I hadn't finished packing everything. So I started packing my hospital bag. Then my mom got on the phone with my husband and was concerned that my birth would go super fast again. I'll progress from like 0 to, to 10 centimeters dilated, which is the, maximum dilation needed to, have that gravity to push the baby out. And by like 1 o'clock again, which is what happened with my first. So my mom is on the phone by like 9, 10 with my husband, telling my husband we need to get to the hospital. We were carless at that time and I wasn't driving. So even if we had a car, I couldn't drive. I was still taking lessons. Oh, no, it wasn't I was taking lessons. Yes, I was still taking lessons and planning on doing the test again. And so, I don't know, from 1 minute to the next, she ends up calling an ambulance because she's like, she needs to get to the hospital. What about if this baby comes? Like, because I was 10. So if it was like the first story, it would have come at like 1. That's like 2 or 3 hours, right? So I had to get to the hospital, get checked in, etc. Make sure there's a bed for me, etc. And my husband like liaised with me. Oh, okay, your mom calls the ambulance. We can see the head. That's what they say. That's what she says to the ambulance. I'm just like, you in active labor yet? I'm still in early labor. Like this, my pains are not increasing yet. I know what active labor is. I remember I had lost the mucus plug at my first. By the time I got to the hospital, my contractions had like ramped up to like I have to stop, breathe. I counted with my first and just prayed the prayer, God will save me in childbearing. That's like my favorite prayer to pray during labor. I've done that now all 3 times. If I don't do it, my husband does it. So I'm like, honey, I'm not in active labor yet. I know. And we don't see the head. But anyway, my husband was like, let the ambulance people come. You can make up your mind if you want to go or not to the hospital now. So the ambulance, in this country, you don't call the ambulance for anything unless it's like a dire emergency. It's not like in the States where you can just call the ambulance, or the ambulance will just come along with a police and like check you. It's not like that here. So because the NHS is a social system, so you want to make sure that the funds are being allocated to where it needs to be. But it's not to deter you ever from calling for help. That's what I really learned, especially during this time in the world right now. Like, if you need help, you need to call, no matter what the government regulations are about, this and that. Like, call and get help for yourself and your family. So the ambulance comes in, they're like, oh yeah, your mom called us, your husband told us that, confirmed with your mom that we can see the head. They come like, I just let them know, like, I'm still in early labor. I know this. I do progress pretty fast. That's what happened with my first. And they're like, well, it's up to you. We can take you to the hospital, no problem. And you can just stay there, or we can just come back here. So I just made up my mind. I'm like, let me just go to the hospital because I don't know how fast this will be. And it's a good ride, free ride at the moment. I don't have to think about a ride, because I was thinking about who was going to take me earlier to the hospital, because I had planned a midwife-led birth in the midwife-led unit in the hospital. That was my birth plan. And I also had another birth plan, like paper-wise, on what to do at the hospital, which I will link as well on the way you can get your own visual birth plan in the blog inbox below. And so I just got into the ambulance, and yes, everybody came with me. So the ambulance took all of us, because I remember I had to put a car seat in the ambulance with my daughter. So the ambulance literally took all of us. It was such a blessing.